Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're new to my channel, I welcome you all. I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness, as well as sharing my life stories with OCD, Asperger's syndrome and the like, to give you the lowdown of what my life journey is like. So I'll be hoping to take you on a life journey with all this journeying of what my life is all about, along with tips and advice with the general health versus your mental health, or whatever kind of health problems you may have, based on my training and life experiences in general, as well as my research that I do in behind the scenes. It's been also brought to my attention also that I do some Beauty from Ashes sort of series also, just a heads up that it kind of relates on everyday things that you go through, be it your relationship breakdown, you're having problems with your relationship with parents, maybe hearsay, or you're just feeling down and out and you just need someone there as support. And I'm hoping to be your girl to shine that light towards you with positive messages of hope to give you clarity and understanding. So as said, basically I have been trying to do as much research as I can on the narcissistic and sociopathic kind of series that I have been studying on my playlistings as of late, even though I would like to try and address as much as I can, because I know this is a real common thing that's happening right now, as well as domestic violence and whatnot, even though we don't see or hear about it much, you know, even though it does happen behind closed doors, even though we need to know obviously the warning signs and symptoms especially, as well as hopefully maybe watching out for the ones that are going through it and actually hoping that we can reach out to them before it's too late, so to speak. So in order to do, guys, this one's all about the narcissistic series, especially this one obviously is the narcissistic abuse and the symptoms of narcissist victim syndrome. And just to clarify, I'm no medical doctor as a disclaimer, I'm just your normal everyday Joe Bloss. So if you see any of the warning signs and symptoms from any of the videos as of till now, please seek professional help for yourself or your loved one, or even just seek an opinion for yourself or your loved one. If you deem, you know, some of this doesn't fit for you, you know, feel free to share this video on to someone you feel, because everyone will need to hear this, because this is one of my strong matters that I would really clearly want to address to you all today, as well as hopefully for the next few days, hopefully after I get more research in. So as you know, basically, as I said, at this point of time, that narcissistic abuse is real and obviously it does exist. And what this is all about is, you know, for narcissistic abuse is what a person in a relationship with someone that meets the criteria of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD for short, or antisocial personality disorder experiences. I have clearly addressed in a little bit about the antisocial personality disorder, which I'll link it up to this video somewhere on the screen. This is a potentially crippling kind of lifelong effect of the narcissist abuse on a partner's mental health state of mind from a cluster of certain symptoms. This has not yet been included in the DSM manual, however, but this is known as narcissistic kind of victim syndrome. As we know, narcissistic abuse can be with the sociopaths as well as the narcissists, which they use the language in specific ways with a specific intent to take another's mind and will keep them captive inside that mind. The term emotional manipulation should be reserved for narcissistic abuse to avoid the risk for falling prey to a narcissist's ploys to hide themselves, blame shift, and mislabel those that do victimize as narcissists. Okay, I'm going to abbreviate down these two words that I've just clearly addressed to you in the beginning of narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder to NPD and APD, and hopefully you guys can follow along to what I'm sharing in the next few bits now. NPDs and APDs are masters of disguise. They tend to clothe in a sheep's clothing as a wolf, as he say. And narcissistic abuse is a form of thought control, again based on manipulation, special type of specific language that is used, designed to emotionally manipulate the other person into handing over their mind and will, and thus their thoughts, desires, agency as possessions for the narcissist's personal gain. NPDs and APDs use language specifically designed to get the victims to of the following: question their sanity, mistrust those who support them, like their family, friends, parents, workers that they work with, 3. Feel abandoned as if only the narcissist cares about them. Number 4. They feel worthless. 5. Give themselves no credit for their hard work. 6. Doubt the ability to think or make decisions on their own. 7. Disconnect from their own wants and needs. 8. Give in to whatever the narcissist wants. 9. Devalue their own contributions. 10. Obsess on their own faults or mistakes. 11. Ignore or make excuses for the narcissist's actions and words. 11. Spin their wheels trying to gain narcissist's favour. 12. Obsess on how to make the narcissist happy. 13. Idealize the narcissist. In the present day circumstances, however, these disordered personalities have advanced their methods with scientific studies on how to emotionally and mentally devastate another person. More often or not, a partner in a couple's relationship to exist in altered mind and body states of powerlessness and helplessness, at least temporarily for now, until they wake up and come out of that fog. Narcissist victim syndrome. Obviously, this is known as a person who is victimized by the narcissistic abuse, often that comes to counseling, and presents oblivious and disconnected from his or her own emotional pain and mental anguish. Instead, he or she tends to be obsessed with his or her own failures, inadequacy, desperately seeking answers on how to solve the specific problems and flaws that the narcissist has identified as causes for their misery. He or she may even give her his or her list of the expectations she has not met to take her with her to therapy, most of which are centered around her not being attentive enough, being too attentive to the children or her family, friends, or having not enough fantasy sex. Her mind is often spinning out of control, preoccupied with trying to sort out this confusion. The effects of the use of these tactics are such as gaslighting and word salad on her mind, with the intent to distort her reality and impose his own, seeking an explanation for why the narcissist is so miserable, why he treats her the way he does, why he feels so insecure, jealous, why they cannot just communicate, why he still doesn't get what she's trying to tell him, and so on and so on. The thinking patterns of a victim of a narcissist abuse are often replete with self-blame and self-condemnation. At the start of the therapy sessions and even in later stages, for example, especially for females, she often repeatedly makes statements such as the following, and you may have heard some of these, or you may be fallen into the trap of saying these yourselves when you're going through this. Really have no problems, just the minor things. We're happy and get along most of the time. It is just really me. Can you fix me, please? Can you make me stop upsetting him so much? I don't want to lose him. Can you fix me? After what I did, how can I ask him to love me again? Is there any hope for me? In addition to these repetitive statements, her thinking in words describes the issue she faces with an imbalanced sense of responsibility. For example, that she may, as you hear, is failing to make him feel loved and secure, can't figure out how to fix herself to stop upsetting him, can't blame him for integrating her, being punitive, moping, ignoring her, yelling, name calling, etc. Did think that so crushed him he'll never get over it, even though it's just the minor things again. Doesn't understand why she resists one or more of his demands. Example, to agree she's crazy and she needs meds. Is the cause of his affairs with the other woman that he may have. In other words, what the victim of the narcissist abuse feels and thinks about herself, life, and the narcissist in most areas is mirrors to some or greater extent to what the narcissist really wants her to think, believe, and feel. This is what emotional manipulation feels like and is really looks like in this darkest moments. The term needs to be reserved for, as I said, narcissistic abuse, as it is distinct from the use of language such as guilting, threats, name calling, shaming, etc., etc. That, in saying that though, while being emotionally abusive, most persons used to include victims of the narcissist to some degree. Most have experienced firsthand in maybe childhood. These practices are, however, unfortunately still widely considered normal and child rearing. Whereas emotional manipulation has aggressive aims to take another's mind and will captive, emotionally abusive language, also harmful. This is rooted in automatic reactivity, which is the primary defensive and protective mechanism inside ourselves. This distinction, however, is also important to disarm any of the tactics of narcissists who strategizes covertly and overtly to hide and blame shift the labels of narcissist and emotionally manipulative onto their own victims. Narcissist victim syndrome exhibits many of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD that will include the following: 1. Intrusive thoughts or memories. 2. Physical emotional reactions to reminders of trauma. 3. Nightmares and flashbacks, for example, feeling as if the event may happen again. 4. Avoidance thoughts, people or situations associated within that trauma. 6, or shall we say 5, negative thoughts about self and the world around them. 6. Distorted sense of blame related to trauma. 7. Sense of detachment or isolation from other people. 8. The nature and effects of narcissist abuse. Okay, if you've experienced narcissistic abuse, understanding the nature of the narcissistic abuse, its effects in narcissistic victim syndrome is critical to healing and restoring your ability to engage in self-care and for looking after yourself. The main difference between an NPD and APD is a line that the NPD doesn't cross, however. Both, however, exhibit no remorse for exploiting or hurting one and hurting another. However, unlike a narcissist, a sociopath crosses the line from lawful to unlawful exploitation of the other. For example, physical abuse, financial exploitation, and so on. In your mind, those in status positions are supposed to prove the coolest, show no empathy. However, in a relationship with a couple, this will show inflicting pain, which is in regard a ritual rite for both NPDs and APDs alike, akin to hazing practices in exclusive groups for men, i.e. fraternities, secret societies, sports teams, and the like. Both taking pleasure in hurting and exploiting others, however, for their own gain with no remorse within the territory. Remorse and empathy are for the weak, however, how they see it, or for the inferior low status persons. A narcissist remains weak and fragile, hooked on proving human and mutual caring too phony, to the extent that he may refuse to acknowledge that he is human. And every human being is fully equipped with resources and intelligence, however, and that's impossible to control another human being, even with children, without high cost to their own self. For the human brain that has mirror neurons, to the extent one feels scorn, hated, disdain for one another, one body produces the neurochemical states of mind and body inside themselves. This is impossible for a human being to seek to intentionally hurt another without hurting themselves. As staying numb inside isn't really living at all, it's merely just existing. Oddly enough, in a paradoxical way, the codependent remains similarly hooked to being treated like a drug, to the extent that she refuses to what she can bring out of the fog and these illusions, that the narcissist she loved willfully never had a conscience or human feelings, and willfully sought to drain the life from her heart, mind, and soul. Nothing is more important than coming out of the fog and illusions to feel alive again, though, however. Well, this quickly ends basically the narcissistic abuse and the symptoms of narcissistic victim syndrome. Give me a like for thumbs up for support, comment below. Feel free to share your stories if you want to, open for discussion to this, because obviously it'll be great to see some engagement here and there so we can support one another. If not, if you've got any problems, feel free to private message me through my Facebook page, AspieAnswersAll, or on here on YouTube. Feel free to follow me on my social medias listed below. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for new updated material that I'm hoping to bring, regardless what it may be, if it's some important matters or not. Feel free to share these videos around to family and friends, like I said, because obviously someone out there may need to hear about this or whatnot. So in all of you guys, thanks for your support, thanks for watching, do what you love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, and I'll see you.